Aaron Hernandez's murder conviction. Aaron Hernandez was supposed to be a Patriots superstar. Drafted in 2010, he signed a $40 million extension and became Tom Brady's go-to red zone target. But in 2013, police arrested him for the murder of Odin Lloyd, a semi-pro football player who was dating Hernandez's fiance's sister. The killing happened in an industrial park near Hernandez's home in North Attleboro, Massachusetts, and evidence, ranging from home security footage to shell casings, pointed directly to him. In 2015, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Just 2 years later, Hernandez was found dead in his cell in what was ruled a suicide days after being acquitted in a separate double murder case. Afterward, doctors discovered he had severe CTE for someone his age, fueling debates about how head trauma could have contributed to his violent spiral. Hernandez's story remains one of the NFL's darkest falls, a shocking case of wasted talent and haunting questions the league would rather not confront. Lawrence Phillips's violent downfall. Lawrence Phillips was once a can't-miss running back prospect. Drafted 6th overall by the Rams in 1996. On the field, he had rare explosiveness, but off the field, his life spiraled into chaos. Even before the draft, Phillips was arrested for assaulting his girlfriend, dragging her downstairs by her hair while at Nebraska. The Rams still took him, but his NFL career was marred by suspensions, fights, and erratic behavior. After bouncing around the league, he wound up in prison for domestic violence, assault, and later, charges connected to driving his car into 3 teenagers. In 2005, he was sentenced to over 30 years in prison. Then in 2015, while incarcerated, Phillips was charged with murdering his cellmate. A year later, he was found dead in his prison cell, ruled a suicide. Phillips' story isn't just one of wasted potential. It's a chilling reminder of how unchecked violence and personal demons can consume even the most gifted athletes. Josh Gordon's addiction spiral. Josh Gordon might be the NFL's biggest what if. Drafted by the Cleveland Browns in 2012, Gordon immediately looked like a future superstar wideout, 6'3", blazing fast, with the ability to dominate defenders. In 2013, he led the league in receiving yards despite missing 2 games. But off the field, Gordon was fighting battles far tougher than cornerbacks. His repeated suspensions for marijuana, alcohol, and other substances derailed his career. Gordon openly admitted to being dependent on drugs and alcohol even during games, once saying he was high or drunk every time he played. The league suspended him multiple times, including a full season in 2015, and despite comeback attempts with the Patriots, Seahawks, and Chiefs, he never regained his early dominance. Gordon's spiral wasn't about laziness or attitude. It was a tragic case of addiction that the NFL's punishment-heavy system couldn't fix. Instead of a Hall of Fame career, he became a cautionary tale of how talent alone isn't enough to outrun personal demons. Kevin Everett's life-altering spinal injury. On September 9, 2007, Buffalo Bills tight end Kevin Everett went in for a routine tackle on kickoff coverage against the Denver Broncos. What happened next silenced the stadium. Everett collided helmet first, suffering a catastrophic spinal cord injury. For hours, doctors feared he would never walk again, and reports even suggested he could be permanently paralyzed. The play became a flashpoint for discussions about the dangers of football and how thin the line is between a career and catastrophe. Miraculously, after emergency surgery and months of rehab, Everett regained the ability to walk, though his football career was over instantly. His story became both inspirational and sobering, proof of human resilience, but also a stark reminder of how violent and unforgiving the NFL can be. Every fan watching that day saw just how quickly the game can turn from entertainment into life and death stakes. Ray Caruth's murder plot. In 1999, Carolina Panthers wide receiver Ray Caruth was arrested for one of the most shocking crimes in league history, a plot to murder his pregnant girlfriend, Sherika Adams. Caruth arranged for her to be followed by an associate who shot her multiple times while she was driving in Charlotte, North Carolina. Adams managed to call 911, identifying Caruth before slipping into a coma. She later died, but doctors saved her baby, Chancellor Lee Adams, who was born with cerebral palsy due to lack of oxygen. Caruth fled, hiding in the trunk of a car in Tennessee before being caught. In 2001, he was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and sentenced to 18 to 24 years in prison. He was released in 2018, but remains one of the NFL's most hated figures. Caruth's crime was so disturbing that it transcended sports, leaving an enduring scar on the league and forever tying his name to betrayal and tragedy. Greg Hardy's domestic violence case. In 2014, Dallas Cowboys defensive end Greg Hardy was at the center of one of the NFL's NFL's ugliest domestic violence cases. Police in Charlotte, North Carolina, arrested him after his ex-girlfriend accused him of assault, detailing that Hardy had thrown her onto a bed covered in assault rifles, strangled her, and threatened to kill her. Hardy was initially convicted in a bench trial, but the case was dismissed on appeal when the accuser stopped cooperating. Photographs later released by Deadspin in 2015 showed her bruises and injuries, sparking outrage that Hardy had ever been allowed back into the league. Though he received a 10-game suspension, later reduced to 4, the Cowboys signed him, and his lack of remorse made the situation even worse. Hardy's NFL career quickly fizzled, and his name became synonymous with the league's failures in handling domestic violence. To this day, fans remember Hardy less for his Pro Bowl talent and more for the chilling details of that case. Steroid scandals and PED controversies in the NFL. Performance-enhancing drugs have haunted the NFL for decades. From the steroid boom of the 1980s to modern synthetic substances, countless players have been caught looking for an edge. Lyle Alzado, a dominant defensive lineman, later admitted steroids fueled his career and blamed them for the brain cancer that killed him. The league officially banned steroids in 1987, but enforcement remained shaky for years. In the 2000s, names like Sean Merriman, Rodney Harrison, and Brian Cushing were suspended for PED use, while whispers of widespread locker room usage never disappeared. Beyond suspensions, the scandal carries an even darker side: long-term health risks, early deaths, and the question of how many stars achieved greatness artificially. Unlike baseball, where steroid scandals dominate the narrative, the NFL has often buried PD controversies under the surface. But the truth is clear: behind the shield, chemical shortcuts have shaped careers, altered legacies, and raised questions the league never fully answers. But first, only cool people are subscribed to this channel, so hit that subscribe button before we go any further. Adam Pacman Jones's legal troubles. Pacman Jones may be the poster child for wasted potential. Drafted 6th overall by the Titans in 2005, Jones was one of the most electrifying cornerbacks and return men in football. But instead of being known for highlight reel plays, he became infamous for his off-field chaos. His rap sheet includes dozens of arrests and incidents, most notably a 2007 strip club brawl in Las Vegas that ended with a shooting that paralyzed a man. The fallout earned him a year-long suspension, costing him his entire 2007 season. Even after stints with the Cowboys and Bengals, Jones kept running into legal issues, fights at airports, nightclub altercations, and countless headlines that overshadowed his talent. While he managed to play over a decade in the league, Pacman's story stands as one of the most chaotic in NFL history, a reminder that some players couldn't leave trouble behind no matter how many second chances they got. Jovan Belcher's murder-suicide. On December 1st, 2012, Kansas City Chiefs linebacker Jovan Belcher shocked the NFL with a tragedy that left an entire team and city shaken. Belcher shot and killed his girlfriend, Cassandra Perkins, at their home, then drove to the Chiefs' practice facility. In front of his head coach and general manager, Belcher turned the gun on himself, leaving behind their 3-month-old daughter. The incident stunned the league, happening just hours before a scheduled game. The Chiefs played the next day, but the shadow of the tragedy hung over Arrowhead Stadium. Belcher's death reignited debates about mental health, domestic violence, and the pressures NFL players face. It also raised questions about head trauma's role. Later reports suggested Belcher had brain damage consistent with CTE. The story was devastating on every level. A young mother lost her life, a child lost both parents, and the NFL faced another example of the real human cost of the game. Art Schlichter's lifetime gambling ban. Before there was Pete Rose in baseball, there was Art Schlichter in football. Drafted 4th overall by the Colts in 1982, Schlichter was supposed to be their franchise quarterback. Instead, he developed a crippling gambling addiction that destroyed his career. Almost immediately after entering the league, Schlichter blew through his signing bonus on bets, racking up debts with bookies, and even involving himself with mob connections. By 1983, he was suspended by the NFL for gambling violations, effectively ending his shot at stardom. Schlichter's addiction spiraled for decades, landing him in and out of prison for fraud schemes designed to pay off gambling debts. In total, he served over 10 years behind bars, with his latest release coming in 2021. Schlichter's story is one of the darkest warnings in NFL history, proof of how addiction can derail a career before it even begins, and how the league has long wrestled with its uneasy relationship with gambling. Michael Irvin and the infamous White House scandal. In the mid-1990s, the Dallas Cowboys dynasty was winning Super Bowls on the field, but earning a reputation for chaos off it. At the center was wide receiver Michael Irvin, whose name became tied to what teammates jokingly called the White House, a rental property near the team facility in Valley Ranch. Players used it as a private party spot where alcohol, drugs, and prostitutes were allegedly common. In 1996, Irvin was arrested on his 30th birthday for possession of cocaine and marijuana, which made headlines across the country. While the charges later led to a plea bargain, the damage was done. America's team had a full-blown image crisis. Stories of wild parties, police reports, and shady behavior followed Irvin for years, even as he eventually turned his life around and found success as a broadcaster. The White House era remains one of the NFL's most notorious tales of unchecked excess, showing how even championship glory couldn't cover up scandal. Sam Hurd's drug trafficking bust. In 2011, Chicago Bears wide receiver Sam Hurd was arrested in a sting operation that exposed him as more than just an NFL player. He was allegedly trying to be a kingpin. Authorities said Hurd was attempting to set up a massive drug trafficking ring, negotiating deals to move large amounts of cocaine and marijuana across the country. Hurd reportedly bragged about being able to distribute multiple kilograms per week, and investigators tied him to high-level drug suppliers. The arrest shocked teammates and fans, as Hurd had built a reputation as a hardworking, soft-spoken player. In 2013, he was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Hurd's fall from NFL player to drug trafficker remains one of the most surreal cases in league history, blurring the line between athlete and criminal enterprise. Instead of highlight catches, his legacy became one of ambition turned criminal, forever staining his name in football history. Johnny Manziel's mental health breakdown. Johnny Manziel entered the NFL in 2014 as Johnny Football, the Heisman-winning sensation from Texas A&M and a first-round pick of the Cleveland Browns, but his career unraveled almost instantly. Known for his flashy lifestyle, Manziel was caught up in constant partying, alcohol abuse, and reckless behavior off the field. Reports of him missing practices, showing up hungover to team activities, and even wearing disguises to avoid media attention painted a picture of someone spiraling out of control. By 2016, he was out of the NFL entirely. Later, Manziel admitted to struggles with bipolar disorder and suicidal thoughts, opening up about the mental health issues that fueled his downfall. While he attempted comebacks in the CFL and other leagues, he never regained his NFL footing. Manziel's story became less about a bust and more about how fame, pressure, and untreated mental health can crush even the most electric talents. Ryan Leaf's collapse and arrests. Drafted second overall in 1998, just behind Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf was supposed to be a franchise savior for the San Diego Chargers. Instead, he became one of the NFL's most infamous busts. Leaf struggled on the field with turnovers and immaturity, but it was his behavior off the field that cemented his legacy. He clashed with coaches, exploded at reporters, and failed to live up to expectations, leading to his release after just 4 seasons. But the true collapse came later. Leaf developed an addiction to prescription painkillers, which led to multiple arrests for burglary and drug charges in the 2010s. In 2012, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison, serving about 2 before being paroled. Today, Leaf works as an advocate for recovery and redemption, but his name still symbolizes squandered potential. His fall wasn't just about football. It was about how pressure, injury, and addiction can turn a dream career into a cautionary tale. Justin Blackmon's career lost to substance abuse. Justin Blackmon was a 2-time Biletnikoff Award winner at Oklahoma State and the 5th overall pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2012. On paper, he had everything needed to be a star wideout, but off the field, substance abuse quickly ended his career. Blackmon was arrested multiple times for DUI, including one just months after being drafted, and later for marijuana possession. In 2013, the NFL suspended him indefinitely for repeated violations of the league's substance abuse policy. Despite being technically eligible for reinstatement years later, Blackmon never returned to the field. Former teammates and coaches described him as immensely talented but unable to overcome his struggles with addiction. In the end, he played just 20 NFL games before disappearing from the sport. Blackmon's story is often overshadowed by higher profile stars, but his downfall is one of the fastest and most tragic, a reminder of how addiction can erase even the brightest promise almost overnight. Dave Duerson's suicide and CTE note. Dave Duerson was a Pro Bowl safety and a Super Bowl champion with the 1985 Chicago Bears. But after football, his life took a devastating turn. On February 17, 2011, Duerson shot himself in the chest, studied chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. Doctors later confirmed he had the disease, with significant brain damage from repeated head trauma. Duerson had experienced memory loss, mood swings, and depression in his final years, which aligned with the symptoms many former players were reporting. His death became one of the most high-profile cases linking football to CTE, sparking lawsuits against the NFL and putting the league under a national microscope. Duerson's choice turned his tragedy into a message. Football's hidden cost was catching up, and it couldn't be ignored anymore. Darrell Henley's prison sentence for drug trafficking. Darrell Henley, a promising cornerback for the Los Angeles Rams in the early 1990s, saw his career implode in shocking fashion. In 1995, he was convicted for his role in a cocaine trafficking operation that involved attempting to distribute large amounts across state lines. Henley received a 20-year prison sentence, but the story didn't stop there. While incarcerated, prosecutors discovered he had conspired to have the judge in his case and a witness murdered. That added another 21 years to his sentence, bringing his total to 41 years. What started as a once bright NFL career ended with one of the darkest scandals imaginable. An athlete not only tied to drugs, but also plotting violence against those who held him accountable. Henley's case remains one of the most jaw-dropping criminal downfalls in NFL history. NFL players and gambling losses. Gambling has been a shadow around professional sports forever, and the NFL is no exception. Countless players have lost fortunes to betting, casinos, and risky investments. While former NBA star Antoine Walker is often cited for blowing over $100 million in part due to gambling, NFL names like Clinton Portis, Warren Sapp, and others also went bankrupt in part due to bad bets. The league has suspended players for gambling on games, including Paul Hornung and Alex Karras in the 1960s, and more recently Calvin Ridley in 2022. The darker side isn't just the suspensions, it's how quickly players can spiral when debts pile up and outside influences creep in. Stories of players taking risky loans from dangerous people or gambling away entire contracts show how financial mismanagement and addiction can ruin lives. With legalized sports betting now exploding across the country, the issue feels more relevant and threatening than ever before. Derek Thomas's fatal car crash. Derek Thomas was one of the most beloved linebackers in NFL history, a 9-time Pro Bowler and face of the Kansas City Chiefs throughout the 1990s. But on January 23, 2000, his life ended tragically. While driving to Kansas City International Airport during a snowstorm, Thomas lost control of his car. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and the crash left him paralyzed from the chest down. Just over 2 weeks later, he died from complications of a blood clot. Thomas was only 33 years old. The loss devastated the Chiefs and the entire football community, as Thomas was seen not only as a Hall of Fame caliber player, but also a community leader through his charitable foundation. His story became a cautionary tale about seatbelt safety. But more than that, it was a gut punch reminder of how quickly even larger-than-life figures can be gone. Ricky Williams' repeated suspensions for marijuana. Ricky Williams was one of the most unique running backs in NFL history, dominant on the field, yet constantly at odds with the league over marijuana. Drafted 5th overall in 1999 by the Saints, he hit his prime with the Miami Dolphins, even leading the league in rushing in 2002. But multiple positive drug tests led to repeated suspensions, including a full season in 2006. At one point, Williams shocked the football world by abruptly retiring at age 27, saying he wanted to focus on his personal growth and avoid the constant battles over marijuana. Though he later returned and had productive seasons, his career was forever defined by those suspensions. In hindsight, with marijuana now legalized in many states and even approved by some sports leagues, Williams looks less like a rebel and more like someone ahead of his time. Still, in the NFL of the 2000s, his choices made him one of the most controversial figures in the game. If you liked this video, YouTube thinks you are going to love this next one too, so check it out.